Hey guys,
Veronica,
Andrew,
and Nate here. We are
Foodies Watching Movies,
a podcast dedicated to
awesome movies,
great food,
and that's about it.
Check us out on the JIC network at www.journeyintocomics.com.
Maybe throw some money over to our Patreon.
So we can eat this week.
And now, your feature presentation.
The following is a Journey into Comics Network production.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Puhr Report. I am your host, Andrew Puhr, and I want to thank you for joining me. Now, it's been a little weird this week. Normally, I have my episode out a few days earlier, but here I am tonight trying to get everything out, and at least giving this extra time between when I recorded and when I usually get the episode out to you. I was able to actually think of something new that I want to try this week. I normally go into recording this episode with a rundown of things I want to talk about, articles I want to discuss, and I decided to do something a little bit different. So I've taken everything I would normally talk about, I've written them down, I've cut them into strips of paper and folded them up and put them in a bowl. Now with this, I'm just going to pull a piece of paper out at random, read it, and then go right into discussing that particular topic or that article. So it's going to be a little interesting, and I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. If it doesn't work, hey, it's only episode 6. I can always try something different going forward. That's the thing with podcasts. They're a constantly evolving beast. I know what I talked about on episode 1 is not what I'm talking about doing now. So I'm just going to dive right in with the first article, and it is... So this is Pence's trip to Indianapolis, which occurred for the Indianapolis Colts game, which was on Sunday. For those of you listening, it was a few days ago. While I was recording it was yesterday. So Vice President Pence had planned on going to Indianapolis to see the Colts play and to see Peyton Manning get his number retired as part of the halftime show. So he prepared this, had his whole team come out, or... like his whole, not the team, not the Indianapolis Colts, but had the whole Secret Service come with him and do the sweep of Lucas Oil Stadium, had all of his staff and everything, stayed up in a hotel overnight, flew him all the way from, I think at the time he was in Las Vegas, flew him from Las Vegas to Indianapolis, did all that and stuff. He was able to praise on Twitter that he was going to the game to support one of his hometown proud people because, as all of you know, before he was vice president, he was the governor of Indiana. So he goes in saying, let's do this, and then the national anthem came. And for those of you who know, Indianapolis Colts were playing the San Francisco 49ers, and the 49ers were the first team to kneel for the national anthem, starting with Colin Kaepernick about a year ago. So by doing this, Pence stated the fact that, like Trump and Pence had talked, that he was, if it came up that anyone kneeled for the national anthem, he would leave. So, lo and behold, he went all the way there, sitting in his nice booth up at the top, and none of the Indianapolis Colts players kneeled, but as expected, a handful of San Francisco 49ers players kneeled during the national anthem. So, him and his whole team got up, walked out, and left, and then put on Twitter how the president and I will not allow this behavior to happen. The players and everyone should respect the flag and our troops, and made this whole big statement and turned this whole event he was going out for into just a stupid political stunt. He knew what was happening going in, and he chose to spend, and this is what my paper said, was that the price tag for Pence's trip to Indianapolis was $242,500. So he spent almost $250,000 just to make a political statement. And this whole thing even overshadowed Peyton Manning's number getting retired, because all the articles that came out of the Indianapolis Colts game was about Pence walking out right after the national anthem and then getting on his plane and flying off again. It's just kind of ridiculous that he would go through all this trouble, waste all this taxpayer money just to be a lackey for President Trump's hard stance against the NFL. And this isn't even the first time that Pence has done this. He pulled a similar stunt when he went and saw the Broadway show Hamilton in New York after Trump was elected. And everyone knows that administration has a strong stance on immigration, and the governor has made a lot of statements while he was governor about homosexuality in the state of Indiana, and there was that whole issue with businesses had the right to refuse to do like weddings or services for people of the homosexual nature. So going to a very liberal theater crowd to see a musical about immigrants and the founding of America by the creator who is of Puerto Rican descent, Lin-Manuel Miranda. And then, of course, if anyone knew from that story from many months ago now, the lead who played Hamilton gave a speech to Vice President Pence directly from the stage, and then Trump made this big statement about how the cast and the theater should apologize to Pence and his administration and everything, and it was just a big thing, and Trump was able to milk that for everything he got out of it. So this is just really ridiculous for me that he knew well going into the game that the 49ers were likely going to kneel. His just showing up wasn't going to change anything. It probably would have made it worse. Just like weeks ago when Trump really went after the NFL saying, like, owners should fire any player that kneels. And then, lo and behold, the next day, many, many, many more players from all teams kneeled or chose to stand with locked arms or chose not even come out of the locker room during the national anthem, further driving this divide between the people that strongly support Trump and everything it stands for and people who just want to watch football. And typically, I feel like most Americans love football, and this has caused a major divide with people who really love their team and people who are very conservative and very for everything Trump says in his administration. And I've seen plenty of people on Facebook say, I'm not watching the NFL anymore. This is ridiculous. I hope the Bears win, but I'm not going to watch until people stop kneeling. And I'm sure, it's just ridiculous, the people that are doing this. And it seems crazy to waste all that money for a political stunt. And his staff even said to the press that were following them that you should probably just stay in the car. They probably won't be in there long. So they clearly went in knowing that this was just a political sideshow act. That he trotted out just to make this statement, just to make all the news articles giving Trump something else to talk about on Twitter and in front of the media and more things just to divert from everything else that's been going on, which is just, it's always just pivoting. That's what this whole administration seems to be doing. Whenever something happens that looks negative on them, they'll pivot or pull focus. And this reminded me of a quote from the TV show House of Cards on Netflix. It was one of the earlier seasons where Frank Underwood was then vice president. Spoilers for those of you who haven't watched House of Cards yet. He said, vice presidents are either doormats or matadors. And really with everything that's going on, which do you think Pence is? All right, on to the next one. Let's see. Good news. Oh, if there's any kids listening, probably under 10 years old, you might not want to continue listening. So good news, kids. We have finally found Santa's corpse. Now you're probably thinking, like, what in the world is he talking about? Okay, so what happened is Turkish archaeologists in Demir, Turkey, I think it's Demir, it's spelled D-E-M-R-E, so either Demir, I'm not quite sure. They had Demir in Turkey is where St. Nicholas was believed to have lived. And they, during investigating and doing like that sonogram stuff where you can kind of see there, they found a crypt type place under one of the churches that shows that believe contains the body of Saint Nicholas. So right now they're trying to figure out the best way to access that crypt without damaging anything inside of it. So presumably once they gain access, they'll be able to take his body out, sit him in a chair so children all over the world can get up on his lap and ask for the new Xbox. Yeah. Good old Saint Nick. Okay, here's another new one. Hulu's new series, Castle Rock, will be an anthology show that connects the world of Stephen King. The trailer just dropped for this the other day, so for those of you who haven't seen the trailer yet, just search Castle Rock on Hulu. A couple funny things about that. For those of you who are fans of Kevin Smith and his podcast, his co-host for Fat Man on Batman is Mark Bernard, and Mark Bernard was actually a staff writer for Castle Rock, which I think is more of a reason to watch that show. And after watching the trailer, it seems very much in the vein of a lot of Stephen King's stories. It has a pretty good cast. Sissy Spacek, who everyone knows, she played Carrie in the original Carrie movie. There's also Bill Skarsgård, who played it in the highest grossing R-rated horror movie of all time. So already has a great cast of people who have previously worked in Stephen King's world. And this show is going to kind of loosely connect all the stories and kind of run through the arcs tangentially. From what I've gathered from the trailer, it looks like Bill Skarsgård's character in this is in Shawshank Prison for something we don't know yet. You can see different homages to other Stephen King's works. You see kind of water going down a staircase that kind of reminds you of in It, when the little paper boat is going down the side of the street in the gutter. You just see homage to other work. You see like the missing persons poster. You see a car driving sign that has a Shawshank bumper sticker on the back. And it's really made it sound like that they're really going to dive headfirst into this world of Stephen King and make it seem like something that Stephen King either would have wrote, and I know he's given the show his blessing, so I'm very happy to watch it. And speaking of Stephen King, my fiance actually saw him, it's now as you're listening to this, probably 2 weeks ago, and we got to hear him talk about his new book, Sleeping Beauties, which I've talked about previously on the podcast, which he worked on this book with his son, Owen. And my fiance and I were lucky enough to both get signed copies of the book out of 2,400 people that were attending the show in Milwaukee, the part of the book tour, and like an evening with where they asked like Q&A questions. So out of that 2,400 people, Stephen King and his son signed 400 copies. And out of those 400, my fiance and I got 2. So it was kind of a crazy thing to find out. And I know my fiance and I both waited until we got back into the car. And we're just like, all right, 1, 2, 3. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because anyone knows Stephen King's signature is highly sought after. And I've already seen, as he's been doing some of these shows on his book tour, that people have been putting these signed copies up on eBay and stuff for just hundreds of dollars. And I would never think to even sell a copy. Like, that's just something that's going to be treasured now that I have a book by an author I really enjoy, and now I have his autograph on it. So I'm very happy about that, and I encourage everyone who's not familiar with any of Stephen King's work, check out a book, check out a movie, or check out this new TV show, Castle Rock, on Hulu, which also brought you 11/22/63. It's going to be coming out in 2018. Take a drink of water here. Okay, now speaking of streaming services, Netflix and Marvel had canceled their Punisher event in Paris due to the Las Vegas tragedy. As everyone knows, The Punisher is a very graphic show involving a lot of gun violence, and it's a very dark character, and the trailer alone had just a ton of gunshots and gunfire and people getting killed and blood and everything. And after the recent events in Las Vegas where 58 people lost their lives and over 400 people were injured just by attending a concert when a madman from the Mandalay Bay Hotel just opened fire during a concert about country music, and it was just a horrific event. And I'm going to talk about it more further. It's one of the news articles listed here, but I think it makes a lot of sense to not go through and try and do publicity and do the big thing out for a show that would for someone who had either gone through that tragedy and that horrific terrorist attack, or someone who knows someone who was affected by that. It's just not something you want to see right now. It's definitely dark. The trailer does look fantastic, but I think it's an appropriate move by both Netflix and Marvel to not have that event and just probably even push the air date back a few months, just because we have a show that's going to have a lot of gun violence in it. And after a tragedy like this, it's definitely good to put it off and let people who went through it to grieve, and people who that's still fresh in their mind, not to have to think about that every time they're trying to enjoy The Punisher. So, yeah, definitely a good move on both of them. Alright, I guess keeping in with more gun stuff. So, the NRA, after everything that happened, they made their statement. And it came out that the person involved, I'm not going to say his name because that I don't believe in glorifying people who do deeds. Just, it's not fair to give them more infamy. And I know I've seen his pictures plastered all over the news media, and never a picture with him like a mug shot or a very straightforward shot. So it was like a picture of him with his eyes closed, or a picture from like 30 years ago, because apparently he's never taken pictures before. But I don't believe in giving this. I won't share his name. Honestly don't even remember his name right now, and that's probably how it should be. But so the NRA came out and they made a statement about it, and they also said that bump stocks should be subjected to additional regulations. Now, bump stocks are what you can use to convert a semi-automatic weapon and give it the ability to kind of fire like a machine gun, and it's something that man had used on this horrific event. And there was plenty there, and that stalled a whole other discussion, and there were lawmakers in Washington who talked about bringing that to the forefront. And the NRA said that though they disagree with Americans not being able to have the weapons they want, and that's their God-given right and their constitutional right to have that, they said maybe a weapon or a part to a weapon like that should have more scrutiny under it. Alright, let's dive into some more fun stuff. Okay, Jim Jeffries on gun control. I guess we're really kind of following a little bit of a theme, at least in the luck of the draw here. So, Jim Jeffries is a comedian that I have listened to, is very funny, and there was a lot of publicity that fell out of Specially Did that you can see on Netflix if you just search Jim Jeffries, where he talked about gun control. And I've printed off his full bit on that, and I'm going to read out to you because, though it is, yes, it has a comedic context, I think his reasoning and what he has said in this, I think is pretty accurate to how I feel about guns and gun control. And I'm going to pause in advance. There's some more extreme language than I used to using, words that I don't say in public, but I'm going to say it in reading this, so I'm just putting a little disclaimer in front of that. So, and I don't have this comedic timing, but hopefully you enjoy this and find it informative as much as I did. Okay, I'm going to talk about something now that sort of splits the crowd a little bit. Gun control. Now, no, wait, before you, don't get excited because other people have guns. The anti-gun people are like, yeah, do it, Jim. No, let's just. Now, before I start saying this, I want to say this right. I believe in your right as Americans to have guns. I'm not trying to stop you from having guns. All I'm saying is that this is my personal belief on the opinion. My opinion on it doesn't matter, I don't like guns, right? I'm going to say some things that are facts, right? In Australia, we had guns, right? Right up until 1996. In 1996, Australia had the biggest massacre on Earth. It still hasn't been beaten. And now after that, they banned the guns. Now, in the 10 years before Port Arthur, there were 10 massacres. Since the gun ban in 1996, there hasn't been a single massacre. I don't know how or why this happened. Maybe it was a coincidence, right? Now, please understand that Australia and America are two vastly different cultures with different people, right? I get it. In Australia, we had the biggest massacre on earth, and the Australian government was, that's it, no more guns. And we all went, yeah, all right then. That seems fair enough. Really. Now, in America, you had the Sandy Hook massacre where little tiny children died, and your government went, maybe we'll get rid of the big guns? And 50% of you went, fuck you, don't take my guns. So here's where it gets confusing, right? Now, as I said, I'm all for your Second Amendment rights. I think you should be able to have guns, it's in your Constitution. What I'm not for is bullshit arguments and lies. There's one argument and one argument alone for having a gun, and this is the argument. Fuck off. I like guns. It's not the best argument, but it's all you've got. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with saying, I like something, don't take it away from me. But don't give me this other bullshit. The main one is, I need it for protection, I need it to protect me, I need it to protect my family. Really? Is that why they're called assault rifles? Is it? I've never heard of these fucking protection rifles you speak of. Protection? What the fuck are you talking about? You have a gun in your house. You're 80% more likely to use that gun on yourself than to shoot someone else. And people think, well, that never happened to me. You don't know that because you know what? From time to time, we all get sad. One day you're happy, then you're sad. And then, protection. I had a break-in in Manchester, England, when I was tied up, I had my head cut, they threatened to rape my girlfriend, they came through the window with a machete and a hammer, and Americans always go, well, imagine if you had a gun. And I'm like, alright, I was naked at the time, I wasn't wearing my holster. I wasn't staring at the window waiting for cunts with machetes to come through. What world do you live in where you're constantly fucking ready? You have guns because you like guns. That's why you go to gun conventions. That's why you read gun magazines. None of you give a shit about home security. None of you go to home security conventions. None of you read Padlock Monthly. None of you have a Facebook picture of you behind a security door going, fucking yeah. Like you're ready to... Like you're going to be ready if someone comes to your house. You have it all the fucking times. By the way, most people who are breaking into your house just want your fucking TV. You think that people are coming to murder your family? How many fucking enemies do you have? Jeez. You think a lot of yourself, you think everyone's coming to murder you. See, if you have it readily available, it becomes unsafe. You have it in your bedside table, one of your kids picks it up, thinks it's a toy, shoots another one of your kids. Happens every fucking day. But people go, they'd never happen in my house because I'm a responsible gun owner. I keep my guns locked in a safe. Then there's no fucking protection. Someone comes into my house, you're like, wait there, fuckface. Oh, you've come to the wrong house here, buddy boy. I tell you what, I'm gonna fuck you up. Okay. Is it 32 to the left or 32 to the right? Your mother's birthday? Why the fuck would I know your fucking mother's birthday? Maybe you didn't leave the window open because it's too hot in here. We wouldn't be getting fucking murdered, right? I find the NRA to be hard work. The fact that they always think the answer is more guns. After Sandy Hook happened, the NRA said, and I quote, none of this would have happened if the teachers had guns. I think they're forgetting what school was like. Does anyone remember the casual teacher that used to, whenever she came into school, the relief teacher came and your friends would see her and go, oh, we're gonna make her cry. Then she'd stand in front of the class with a bit of chalk and her hand would be shaking. You'd go, you've never been married, are you, miss? Never gonna happen for you. Then she'd get back into her 1967 Volkswagen Beetle and she'd be crying over the steering wheel just saying, why don't they like me? Let's give that cunt a gun and see how things work out. And they go, oh, well, answer that, we'll just add more guns. They'll go, we'll put an armed security guard at every school across America. Yeah, that'll work out. The average security guard in America earns $16 an hour. Not a lot of wiggle room to be a fucking hero. Someone comes onto a school and you've got Kevin. Now, I'm sure Kevin shot shit hot at Call of Duty, but it might not fucking cut it, ladies and gentlemen. Now I understand that when I'm doing this joke in this room, 50% of you agree with me and 50% of you don't agree with me. And I do respect the people who don't agree with me. Don't think I don't. Out of the 50% that don't agree with me, 20% of those are smart enough to realize that this is a comedy show and it's not to be taken seriously, and they're laughing along because it's just funny jokes, right? And then the next 20% have sort of phased out a little bit. They're looking around going, wonder how they got that chandelier up there. And then there's the last 10%, and they're fucking furious. Right now in this room, there are people watching at home, 10% of you are fucking seething, and just for a couple reasons. First reason, I'm making good points. Second reason, and this is the big one, I'm foreign. And that's pissing the fuck out of you right now. And your brain is on a loop, and you can't fucking turn it off, and it's just going around and around, and you're just going, if you don't like it, go home. If you don't like it, go home. And my answer to that is, no. I came here legally, I pay my taxes, I'll say whatever the fuck I want. Your First Amendment means that I can say the Second Amendment sucks dick. And unless you're an American Indian, you're fucking an immigrant as well. So fuck off. People get so precious about it. I understand that to Americans your Constitution is very important. I respect that, but please understand that every country has one as well. It's no more special than any other Constitution. We have one in Australia. I don't know what it says. I've never seen it. If there's a problem, we'll check it out, but everything's going fine. And don't get me wrong. I get that the Constitution is important to you. I get it, right? I've had people come to my face and scream at me in car parks I'm leaving theater going, you cannot change the Second Amendment. And I'm like, yes, you can. It's called an amendment. If you can't change something that's called an amendment... See, many of you need a thesaurus more than you need a constitution. And if you don't know what a thesaurus is, get a dictionary and work your way forward. Don't think your constitution is set in stone. You've changed things before. You used to have prohibition in there, right? And then people were like, hey, who likes getting fucked up? Yeah, I like getting fucked up too. Let's get that one out. You used to have things in America called slavery, and then Lincoln came along and went, that's it, no more slaves. And 50% of you went, fuck you, don't take my slaves. And the same bullshit arguments came out you have with guns. Why should I have my slaves taken off me? I'm a responsible slave owner. I've trained in how to use my slaves safely. Just because that guy mistreated his slaves doesn't mean that my rights should be taken away from me. I use my slaves to protect my family. I keep my slaves locked in a safe. That's the thing. Why should I have my guns taken off me? I've done nothing wrong. Look, I agree with you. If you're a responsible gun owner and don't fuck around with them, then you should be allowed your guns. You really should, but that's not how society works. We have to play to the 1% that are such fuckwits they ruined it for the rest of us. We have to walk as slow as our slowest person to keep society fucking moving. I take drugs like a fucking champion, right? We should be allowed to take fucking drugs, but we can't, can we? Because Sarah took drugs and she stabbed her fucking kids. Oh, thanks, Sarah, you fucked it up for everyone. Right? Everyone should be allowed to drive their car as fast as they can, right? But we can't because Jonathan got drunk and ran over a family. Thanks, Jonathan, now I have to drive a 30, you fucking idiot. See, that's the thing. Why should I have my guns taken off me? I'm responsible. Just because that guy's crazy, who's to say you're not crazy? That's the thing about crazy people. They don't know they're crazy. That's what makes them crazy. The only thing you know for sure on Earth is, I think, therefore I am. You know that you exist. Anything past that is open to interpretation, right? You know you exist and that's it. Right now I think I'm talking in Boston to 1,200 people. That's what I think I'm doing. But there's a good to fair chance that I'm in a mental home standing in front of a white wall going, I hate guns, I hate guns, I hate guns. So, one of the better arguments is, well, if you take away the guns, the only criminals will have the guns. Not true. When they banned the guns in Australia, it worked. When they banned them in Britain, it worked. Okay? The Bushmaster gun that the kid was going to use in Sandy Hook cost like $1,000 in America, and you can buy it at Walmart. It'll be delivered to your home. That's it, man. $1,000. The same gun in Australia on the black market costs $34,000. Now, if you have $34,000, you don't need to be a criminal. You've got $34,000. You're a great little saver. Keep going. So that covers the criminals, but that doesn't cover the people who want to murder your family. That are coming after you and your family. It kind of does. The people who do the massacres, it covers them. Because they go, the kid at Colorado who thought he was the Joker, let's say that he had some social issues. The kid at Candy Hook was Asperger's as fuck. Right, I don't know if you know a lot about the black market, but you can't just rock up to the docks going, guns, who wants to sell me a gun? Now I'm going to wrap this up. We won't talk about it anymore now. See, the only thing I really do agree with is the right to bear arms. I really agree with it. There's the reason it was written. It was so you could form a militia to fight against a tyrannical government. in case the government became a bunch of cunts, you could get your guns and fight back, and that's why it was written. And that made a hell of a lot of sense when it was just muskets. But you know the government has drones, right? You get that. You're bringing guns to a drone fight. If we went back to muskets, I'm all for it. Keep the Second Amendment. If we all have muskets, muskets are awesome. Everyone should be carrying a musket with them at all times. You know what's good about a musket? It gives you a lot of time to calm down. Someone calls your wife fat and you're like, fuck you, buddy. And after all the minutes of you just trying to fill your musket, you're like, you're not a bad guy. You're alright. And that is Jim Jeffries' bit on gun control. And I agree with a lot of it. I apologize then for the language and the kind of the strong language he had on it. But I agree with a lot of what he said. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it that way. And I'm totally over the fact that this country, we have lobbyists who can basically pay all of our politicians to get their own agendas across instead of them representing the people, which is what they were elected to do in the first place. So, yeah, I think lobbyists should go away. I know there's people who lobby for things that are small or minimal, but there's a vast majority that donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to these high-level political operatives just to say, like, the NRA, for one, is just a major donor to all these campaigns to get them to push things in their favor, and I'm totally not okay with that. It's just ridiculous to me that that's something that's allowed to happen. Alright, moving on to the next one. Okay. So, for those of you who are fans of the show Rick and Morty, I've never seen the show, unfortunately. I've heard it's really good, and I should check it out, but I just haven't had the time. So, apparently on that show, Rick and Morty, from what I understand, is that McDonald's Szechuan sauce is a big thing on the show, that Rick or Morty always wanted to have that sauce. And it got enough public attention that McDonald's sent a giant jug of it to the creators of Rick and Morty. And then came later to something more recently where they announced there were going to be packets of the Szechuan sauce at the stores for people to partake in. And I guess, from what I understand, there was a finite amount, like every store got like 20 packets or some very small amount, and there were hundreds of people that showed up to some of the larger stores in some of the more major metropolitan areas. So obviously they ran out, people waited in line for hours to get nothing, and kids were upset, parents were pissed. It was just kind of a nightmare. And this led to McDonald's having to deal with this big PR fiasco to come out and saying, we underestimated the amount of people interested in this. We apologize. We're bringing that sauce back in, like, winter. There's going to be plenty for everyone. Look forward to that. And basically, they apologize for the stunt going horribly wrong and the fact that they thought this was going to be a great way to get interest and business at the store. And then people got mad, and some people were like, I'm never eating McDonald's again. But if you still eat at McDonald's knowing how bad it is for you, then I don't think you're going to stop eating it because they inconvenienced you one day with not having a packet of sauce that's probably not even that great anyway. I don't know. Never had the sauce. But yeah, that's how I feel about it. It's just crazy that people get so upset about that. And there's even people who took that packet of sauce they were given, threw it up on eBay for $50, $100, soft one like $1,000. It was like, who's going to spend that money for a sauce packet? And I bet they were pissed when they're like, hey, just so everyone knows, everyone's going to be able to get hundreds of them in November and December. They're probably like, great. And saw the prices drop down to like $10 and $20. So, yeah, it's a weird business when people just find something like, hey, this might be valuable, put it on eBay. But I know some people do it to make a living, and kudos to them. Here's a funny one. Okay, so the article said, pumpkin spice smell prompts school evacuation in Baltimore. Which I was like, you saw the title and you're like, what? Pumpkin spice evacuation. So I'm like, what is this again? Is Starbucks having a sale? Is that what caused it to be evacuated? No, not at all. So basically what happened is there was an unfamiliar smell in a classroom that people didn't understand what it was, and some kids were getting like lightheaded, so they called 911, and police and fire came out to investigate, and they evacuated the whole school. And I guess the whole thing was they tracked it back, and it was one of those Glade plug-in candles that was pumpkin spice, and apparently no one knew what pumpkin spice smelled like, and freaked out. And I guess some people went to the hospital because of the smell, and I'm always like, yay, get rid of pumpkin spice. I'm one of those people who is not basic, and I believe that apples are always better than pumpkins, in my opinion. Apple pie over pumpkin pie. Always like hot apple cider. Yeah, no pumpkins. None for me. So, yeah. Enjoy your pumpkins. Watch it evacuate schools. Okay. I saw this. I thought this was kind of interesting. So, in Indiana, there was an incident. Indiana police shot at an actor who was playing a bank robber in a movie. Now, this kind of blew me away. I'm like, how does that happen? How do police not know there's a filming going on for a movie at a bank? To, how did they not see film equipment? How did the crew not tell the police in the city, like, hey, we're filming a movie? And, like, they just, like, got a guy walk out of a bank with a ski mask on, a gun in his hand, after it was reported, after someone who didn't know what was going on called in saying there was someone robbing a place. I mean, luckily, the cop missed, and it, like, hit the building, and the actor took off his mask and, like, lay down. It's like, I'm an actor, we're shooting a film. Oh my god, don't hit me. Just freaking out, because, yeah, I've done plays, I've done, like, short films and stuff, and if I was in character and someone, like, tried to shoot at me, I would freak out, and I would drop to the ground and be like, I'm just an actor, this isn't real, don't hit me. I would be freaking out, too. But I think, and they even, like, talked to the staff, like, oh, we didn't tell anyone, we didn't think we had to, even though we're clearly shooting at a bank with a guy dressed as a burglar, or a robber with a gun and a ski mask and all black. They never thought to contact the police. They're also filming inside, so they just see the guy backing out by himself. There was no film equipment outside to see it, so it could have been it could have gone horribly wrong, and it would have been ridiculous, and it wouldn't have been the cop's fault. Yes, the cop probably should have acted better, maybe tased, but when you see a criminal that you think is a criminal with a gun looking like he's robbing a bank and he's not listening, and was clearly he was an actor in a scene and had his head in the door because he was saying lines or communicating with the director or whatever. So, yeah, luckily it missed. They resolved it. Everyone moved on. Still could have been a horrific event if it would have gone south. All right. Let's see. Working through the list here. This is more on the Mike Pence, which I talked on earlier. He came there to support Indiana, support the Colts, support Peyton Manning getting his number retired, and it wasn't even there for that. Like I said before, he walked out after they kneeled during the national anthem. Wasn't there to give Peyton Manning the respect he deserved, and really just upstaged in that whole event, which is really sad. Oh, okay. So Netflix is in the news again. Netflix decided to raise the price up $1. So I think it was $9.99 and now it's $10.99, or it was $10.99 and it's now $11.99. Either way, they increased their price by $1 for new subscribers and existing customers. This is just to deal with like the $6 billion they invest in new content and licensing rights. And they're just thinking that, oh, no one's going to care for $1. But that's the thing. They can't just keep increasing it. I feel like there's been 2 increases in price in the last year. And people are probably not going to be able to handle it. I know people who watch the shows they want to watch, like Stranger Things or The Crown or another big Netflix show like House of Cards. Will watch it until that show drops, get all caught up, drop Netflix until something else comes out. Same people did it with like HBO. They waited till like Game of Thrones ended its season run. They would get the 1 month free pass, watch all of Game of Thrones, and then not pay for the subscription. People will find ways, and people won't deal with these price increases. There's still a finite amount of money that people have towards entertainment. People have it towards going to see movies in theaters, or paying like for cable, or all these streaming services, or video games, or something that they do for fun. And if you keep increasing these dollar amounts, people are just going to eventually drop you, and it's going to backfiring. When there's all these subscription services, they're all charging a X amount of dollars, and you only have like $100 or less to spend a month towards entertainment. You're gonna pick and choose what you want. You're gonna be worse off for it. You're gonna be like, I'm paying more for all these subscription services to get the shows I want to watch than I was when I paid for just cable when everything was on it. And I feel like that's the reason people got away from cable in the first place, because the cable prices were getting ridiculous. So I feel like Netflix is on a slippery slope. They could say, oh, just $1 is not going to bother anyone. But if everyone did that, I feel like subscribers would drop like flies, and then they'd definitely have a cash flow problem, and are not able to bring this content. And they've been putting out good shows, and they get the rights to content that's worth watching. Like right now I'm watching Arrested Development again, and I know the first few seasons they paid for the rights for that, and they did their own season like that took place I think it came out like last year or the year before, and just jumped forward in time and had their whole cast that are now like bigger actors, so they're definitely paying for them. So yeah, I feel like they're going to start hemorrhaging money if they don't. That's probably why they're asking for more money for each subscriber. It's kind of one of those things, like if you lose half your clients, or you lose like a handful of people, and you increase everyone's prices, you're just going to start to trickle off, and they're going to increase the prices to try and maintain your original threshold, but you're just going to keep having people fall away. So I think they need to lock you in, almost like a subscription-controlled Netflix account. There's already people who share Netflix information anyway, so increasing the cost isn't going to help anyone's case. It's not going to help you get new subscribers. I'd say you could probably catch a wider net if you charged everyone like $7, because I feel like people are going to care less if you're taking $7 a month than you are taking like $11 a month. So you're going to have subscribers aren't going to quit after a couple months of shows they're not interested in. So I don't know, I always think it's better. You can probably get more people for less price and making more money than you would of charging a smaller group a larger amount. But that's just my thoughts on it. Alright, let's see what this is. Oh, this is interesting. Donald Trump claimed he invented fake news. I know you're thinking like, what? How can he claim that he invented fake news? So here's a quote that he said. He said, "The media is really the word, one of the greatest of all terms I've come up with is fake." Trump told this to Mike Huckabee on an interview for Mike Huckabee's news show on the Trinity Broadcasting Networks. He says, "I guess other people have used it perhaps over the years, but they've never really noticed, and it's a shame. And they really hurt the country because they take away the spirit of the country." Now, this wasn't satire, he wasn't joking, but it does sound a lot like Dr. Evil's memory of his father in Austin Powers. If you remember from like Goldmember, he said he would make outrageous claims like he invented the question mark. Yeah, sometimes I think Trump is losing his mind a bit, and he's just deflecting. He's pulling focus on the stuff about him and is turning it back on the media who's reporting on it and saying like, oh, it's fake news, but really it's just unflattering news to him. It's just stuff that casts him in a negative light, and he just assumes that he just says it's fake because he has a bit of a fragile ego, and he sees anything that's negative against him as a personal attack, and he blows up on Facebook or Twitter and everything, and just basically tries to legitimize the news media. And it's working there's a large number of people who taking what he says as gospel and are not listening to all their mainstream media, and they're even like, oh, like even like Fox News, if they say something against something, like, oh no, Fox News, we can't do that. And even though Fox News is a very conservative news network, but they're not immune to people's ire towards negative things about Trump, who they view as a golden boy. The same way, like, in a very smaller scale, like the people who saw everything Obama did as fantastic and wonderful, regardless of what it was. But this is just Trump denouncing, like, the media and saying, like, all the media networks are garbage, and I know it's right, and if you should believe what I say and not listen to these reports. I think it's something more on the news media. Yeah, so I guess going along while we're talking about fake news is that Trump, since he's been president, even before he was president, when he was on the campaign trail, he's been just attacking the media and like screaming fake news and saying that like ways what they're reporting is wrong. So he even went as far as on Twitter to say, why isn't the Senate Intelligence Committee looking into the fake news networks in our country to see why so much of the news is just made up? Fake, with an exclamation point, is what he said on Twitter at 5:59 a.m. on October 5th. All right, and here's an article about it that I'm kind of read through. It's from CNN, who Trump definitely doesn't like. And this is an article by Chris Kalisa, who's a CNN editor. And I'm just going to read through it because I found it was pretty interesting. He says, let's be clear about what Trump is suggesting here. He wants the Senate Intelligence Committee to open up an investigation into the fake news networks to get to the bottom of why so much of the news is just made up. He offers no evidence of this claim, and yet the President of the United States feels entirely comfortable urging the legislative branch to open an investigation into the Fourth Estate. The reason? Because Trump doesn't like what the media writes about him. And that's what he means when he uses the word fake. He uses a lot. Fake for Trump is rightly translated as not fawning. The committee is already investigating real fake news targeted by Russians on the U.S. as a part of the larger examination of the Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. election. The truth, as hundreds of fact checks have shown, is that the biggest purveyor of fake news in the country right now is Trump. According to the Washington Post's fact checker blog, Trump has made 1,145 false or misleading claims in his first 232 days in office, which leads to roughly 5 false or misleading statements per day, which is ridiculous. I don't think that's right at all. Trump's casual relationship with the truth makes his calls to the legislative branch to investigate the allegedly fake news industry all the more outlandish. Yes, the media do occasionally get things wrong, but in virtually every case, those mistakes are honest ones. Slip-ups made in an honest pursuit of the truth. And when an error is found, steps are made to publicly remedy the mistake to keep misinformation from seeping into the public's consciousness. Can Trump say the same? The answer, of course, is no. He not only spreads falsehoods, but does so long after it becomes clear that what he is saying is simply not true. Why does he do it? For the same reason he has been attacking the fake news media. His primary daily duty, because it works, or at least it works to motivate his political base, which believes whatever he says. This is interesting, like I said before, with his supporters. And is convinced by the media is compromised primarily of liberals trying to push their agenda behind the guise of neutrality. It's worth noting here that Trump is far from the first president to have issues with the media. Virtually every president has had an adversarial relationship with the press. The difference with Trump is that he seems to not believe in the fundamental role that a free press plays in a democracy, and spends a good chunk of his time working to discredit and disenfranchise the media. Now these are 2 quotes that are done by 2 previous presidents, Barack Obama and George W. Bush. Barack Obama said in his final news conference in January, "I have enjoyed working with all of you. That does not, of course, mean that I've enjoyed every story that you have filled, but that's the point of this relationship. You're not supposed to be sycophants. You're supposed to be skeptics. You're supposed to ask me tough questions. You're not supposed to be complimentary. But you're supposed to cast a critical eye on folks who hold enormous power and make sure that we are accountable to the people who sent us here, and you have done that." And George W. Bush has said, "I consider the media to be indispensable to democracy. We need an independent media to hold power to account. Power can be very addictive and it can be corrosive, and it is important to the media to call to account people who abuse their power." And those 2 quotes are very nice from both a Republican president and a Democratic president. And Trump will never say something like that. I feel like Trump sees the media as something that's supposed to be praising his deeds. There should be a Trump news network that just says, "Oh, Trump rode a horse today." Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. That's what they talk about Kim Jong-un and North Korea. My bad. I got a little off topic thinking about President Trump and Kim Jong-un. Yeah, but it does sound believable, right? Like Trump would want something to yeah, Trump's doing good things today, and that's all the news that cares to talk about. Like, that's not how the news media should work. The news media should always be critical of the administration, should always be looking to make sure that everyone is following the rules, that no one should be overstepping their bounds, no one should be getting power hungry, and I feel like that's exactly what's happening. And he's been attacking the news media since he was a candidate, when they were posting accurate stuff about stuff he said, from the whole pussy grabbing incident to when he mocked a a person with disabilities, just all of that. He just was deflecting, and the people in his cabinet and in his administration are just as bad. Like, I really hate Kellyanne Conway. Like, I would take 4 more years of Trump if I never had to see Kellyanne Conway again. I hated her when she was Trump's campaign manager. I hated her when she's on interviews in front of the media, and just, she's a spin doctor, and she just spits violent attacks. It's just ridiculous. I just hate whenever she's talking, because she'll take the simplest statement or the most innocent question and just make it ridiculous and like turn it back on them and saying, oh, you're being ridiculous. Oh, like, there's videos of her talking to news anchors and they're rolling their eyes at things she's saying because they're just ridiculous and outlandish statements and make no sense and have nothing to do with what's going on. And yeah, I know it's ridiculous to say that I would take 4 more years of Trump if I never had to see Kellyanne Conway again, but it is true. There was a few month period where she wasn't talked about, and that was nice. And then she came back, and she's really been up in arms about the whole kneeling thing and everything like that, just like everyone else in his administration. And yeah, it's ridiculous. And like, you'll remember that at one point, it was reported that the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, apparently in closed doors called Trump a moron. And apparently he contemplated quitting, and Pence had to go in and talk him out of it. And then Trump then attacked the news media, saying that the Secretary of State never threatened to resign. Pence never had to talk to him. I have the utmost respect for him. He has the utmost respect for me. And blah, blah, blah. You guys are wrong. And then it even had to lead, which I'm assuming it wasn't the Secretary of State's idea, but he had to give a press conference. At one point he even said Trump is smart. I feel like that's the most thing, like Trump just went up to him and be like, apparently they think you called me a moron, go out there and tell him I'm smart. And that's exactly what he did. And he gave a whole press conference saying, basically saying that he never said he was going to quit. He loves his job. He loves the work he's doing for the country. He loves working for the president. But he never said, even when asked directly, he never said he didn't call Trump a moron. They literally asked him straight, the article that this is mentioning, he says, I'm not going to dignify that with a response, or I'm not going to deal with this petty news nonsense, or whatever he said. Didn't say, no, I never said that, because he probably did. I mean, Tillerson was a CEO of, I think, Exxon before he was Secretary of State, or was a former CEO of Exxon, so he's used to work with a lot of different people, and I full doubt I think he's a Texas guy. I fully believe he said that Trump was a moron. Okay, let's see what else I got here. I got a few articles left I'll try and get through. Okay, Donald Trump is treating a potential war like a reality show cliffhanger. Now, what that was talking about was that Trump had a dinner with the families of the heads of all the branches of the military. And while they're doing their photo op with the president, his wife, and then all of the heads of the branches of government and their spouses, and basically said that while they're taking pictures, oh, this is the calm before the storm. And everyone was oh, what's this talking about? The press was asking their questions, and is this regarding North Korea? Is this regarding ISIS? And he says, oh, you'll find out. Just said an off-the-cuff statement like that to be just to stir interest, and he was trying to plug the new season of his show, dun dun dun. You'll find out next season when Trump says what he was talking about. But it's just ridiculous that I feel like he still thinks he's the host of a reality show. And that's not what he is. He should be acting like a president. And I will say, as much as I've kind of attacked Trump in this episode, Trump on Monday, on the day following the tragedy in Las Vegas, he did give a very presidential speech. I don't have it in front of me, or I would read it. But if Trump didn't do anything that people criticize him for, if he had just became president, he wasn't the type of person he was during the campaign, and one of his first things as president was giving that speech, which I know he didn't write. He has staff writers, but it was kind of in his voice, but that's how speechwriters are. They're supposed to imitate you. But given all that, Trump's speech was good. It didn't mention guns, but I feel like it was unifying, and if Trump was always that person, I would be okay with him for the rest of his first term. But I would be okay with that. But the fact that he would go from something like that to then like attacking Puerto Rico or all the stuff with kneeling and all that, like every time I feel like Trump is one tiny step forward and like 12 steps back. And it's going to be a hell of a 4 years of dealing with this guy if this is what we're going to deal with every time he does something. We'll do one thing that's marginally presidential or marginally good and then do so many more things that aren't presidential and are just attacking the media or attacking people that disagree with him or all this other stuff. But I don't know how. I feel like every episode I have at least half of it is about Trump and Trump-related things, and I hate that, but that's kind of what we run into. Because Trump is always going to do something that's somewhat newsworthy or something that's worth talking about. But moving on to something that's not Trump, and I don't know if there's anything else Trump-related in my bowl of news topics, but we'll see. Okay. Pro-life congressman reportedly urged his mistress to get an abortion, which is kind of funny, I guess, in as much as it's horrible. So, I don't know the congressman's name. I read it, but I don't really remember what it is. So basically, from what it sounds like, is that a congressman who's very pro-life, who thinks life is sacred from conception through the full term, and apparently he's only that way until it's inconvenient to him, and that's he's a mistress, and I guess she got pregnant. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. You need to get rid of it, and that's kind of ridiculous. I feel like if you're that way, you should be that way fully, and not to an inconvenience. I know they did an episode of like Always Sunny that was about that. It was like, oh, super pro-life until it was inconvenient. They're like, oh no, you need to not do that. And my personal stance is, yes, I am pro-life, but I am not. It's not a black and white issue for me. It's definitely very gray. Like I'm pro-life when that is an issue that makes them, when that is something that, like, I don't believe that abortion should be your form of birth control. Like, if you don't use protection and you get pregnant, that you should have the kid if it's gonna survive. Like, if everything is healthy, everything's working right, that should be fine. Like, if there's an issue in, like, taking the kid to full term is going to harm either the mother or the child, I'm always for the life of the mother in that situation. If there's the issue with rape or incest or any of that kind of stuff, I believe that if it's going to be a constant reminder of something that horrific has happened, yes, in those cases, definitely take care of it. But no, there's a lot of people who struggle with conceiving a child, and for someone to always get, or to feel that abortion is the only option for them because it's inconvenient to them because of their lifestyle or things they feel about the situation. But that's just kind of my views on it. It's definitely a gray area. There's always two sides to every story. But I'm definitely, even though I am pro-life, I'm definitely very much that, look, I'm a male. Like, it's not really my decision on what someone does. My personal views on it or my religious views on it don't change. Like, I'm not going to stop you from having one. I'm not going to say that Planned Parenthood should be closed, or that no one should have that, because that just leaves to people doing things dangerously to prevent that. If there's a will, there's a way, and if someone really wants to have something happen, they're gonna do it anyway, and it's gonna be unsafe. And I'd rather them be safe than to do something wrong. I know, like, there was a period in like the 50s and 60s where there was, like, that's the whole origin of like either coat hanger abortions or going to like shady doctors out of state who would do it in like hotel rooms, like very unhygienic and very unsafe for the mother at the time. And it's just, yeah, I think it's definitely an evolving issue. I know it's always been a political hot topic. It's always something that's debated on every presidential election and every like state rules about it when one state decides to go one way or another for it. And yeah, that's just how I feel on it, and it's kind of spilled out of that. But yeah, very much believe that it's always going to be the woman's choice. I have my own personal views on it, but those are just mine. I'm not going to force my views on anything on another person. Just a couple left here. Oh, finally some like really good news. Constantine is going to appear on DC's Legends of Tomorrow this year, or this season. For those of you who know, Constantine is a DC character. He had his own show. I can't remember if it was on one of the networks. I can't remember the network it was on now, and it ran for one season and unfortunately got canceled. People really liked the character and the actor who played the character and really wanted to see more of him. And I know like the CW got the rights to the first season, or able to put that on their CW seed for people to watch, and I guess enough people watched it that they decided they were going to give him his own animated show on CW seed for people to watch that was going to be voiced by the same actor. He had an episode on Arrow one season that he played a pretty big part of, which everyone really loved, and now it looks like he's going to be on Legends of Tomorrow, which I'm excited about, especially because all those CW shows are coming back. As you see this episode, Supergirl have aired yesterday, and there's still Flash and Legends of Tomorrow and Arrow forthcoming. So I'm definitely excited that these shows are back. I know a lot of them left on amazing cliffhangers, so I'm very happy to see where those shows continue, and I'm looking forward to seeing Constantine on it. I feel like some of these already kind of covered. Oh, here we go. It's a fun one to end on. So there's been pictures and videos circulating of Trump's visit to Puerto Rico after the devastation that was Hurricane Maria that left Puerto Rico without power and adequate infrastructure, and there were people dying because they didn't have adequate supplies. And I talked about on the last episode how they approved a temporary reprieve on the Jones Act, which allowed supplies to get there. So Trump finally, doing what he had to do, made his visit there on last Tuesday, after criticizing Puerto Rico for all the problems they're having are really affecting their budget and blah blah, like blaming them, like basically saying like they did it to themselves, even though it's a natural disaster. There's nothing they could have done to prevent what had happened. They're an island. They're not as high of means as other parts of the U.S. And there's a video that's been circulating of Trump just tossing paper towels to the crowd that's in front of him. And that's not what they need. Like, they need food and medicine and everything else, and he's sitting there almost like you think he'd be at a sporting event with a t-shirt gun going, poof, 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 who likes me? Poof, poof, poof. Like, it's just ridiculous that he did it more as like a hollow gesture to make it appear like he was helping out. Just like in like other hurricane events, when you see him like on the back of a pickup truck talking, or like putting like mac and cheese on a table and stuff, just things that are good photo ops but don't have any lasting effect. And it's kind of ridiculous that more that was due. I think I saw a hilarious video that took him throwing paper towels, and they had like a point total. Like every time it went, it was got like a X's and O's. So it was like, ding, got one. Ding, got one. Oh, didn't get one. Oh, got one. Oh, didn't get one. Didn't get one. It was kind of amusing. It looked like somebody was like doing, and the way he was throwing him, he had like in one hand they would like volley it like a volleyball into the crowd. I don't know. Trump's always gonna do things that are interesting, or they're gonna anger some people. But I've been talking for a long time, and I finished off my bowl. The bowl is empty. You can hear it, right? Empty bowl. I think I like doing this. It kind of keeps me on my toes and lets me not go through more of a focused orientation, and it kind of keeps things more lively. So I guess with that, I'm going to wrap up the show. If you're a listener and you like what you're hearing, I do have Patreon exclusive episodes that are going up where I review the first episodes of various TV shows. I've already done one for Marvel's Inhumans, which was tacked onto the back end of JIC as a little tease for listeners. I've done Gotham. I did a nice hour episode discussing the first two episodes with Nate Phillips, who's the one of the hosts of Journey into Comics. He's the podfather. I've done ones for The Orville, which is the Seth MacFarlane show. I've done ones for various comedies like The Good Place and Will and Grace and Be Myself and I and Ghosted and all that. And I'm going to keep doing it for other shows in between recording my regular Puhr Report episode. So stay tuned for more of that. I know I'm going to be talking about like The Gifted and The Good Doctor. And so, yeah, keep getting excited for that. And just for $3 a month, you can access that on our Patreon. Going to patreon.com/journeyintocomics. So you can listen to all the other shows we have on the network, like Journey into Comics. Listen to my show, which if you're listening to it already, great. There's Foodies Watching Movies. There's Journey into Wrestling. There's Podcastrophe. There's Game Addicts Podcast. There's Butt Stuff. There's The Voice of Survival. And I think that's it. So check out all the other shows on our network. Listen to us on journeyintocomics.com. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to keep bringing you more episodes. I know there's exciting things coming down the pipe for the network, so just keep an eye out for that. So thank you for listening. Sorry if I'm rambling on certain parts of it. But yeah, keep on keeping on. I am Andrew Puhr, and you're listening to the Puhr Report.